Welcome back to HISD Unscripted. This is our first podcast of 2026, and so we're excited to jump in and get conversation started again. My name is Esquivel, and I'm the Director of Media and Communications for Hereford ISD, and I'm joined with...
I'm Chad Jones, a retired educator, now a consultant with Gallagher Construction.
I'm Rob Sidebottom, Business Development Director for Gallagher Construction.
Ralph Carter, still Superintendent at Hereford ISD.
So we're going to jump right in and talk about a big topic that's been on the minds of our community for a while now, which is a new high school. So I think just first to get us started, why is this conversation happening now? You know, we passed a Vader in November of 2025 that addressed operational needs such as providing stipends for our staff and just helping support our daily expenses, but a bond is completely different than what the Vader was used for. But, you know, just in some of the things I've already seen and heard, why are we discussing this now, so soon right after the Vader?
Well, I think, first of all, it's been a conversation since I've been here, the fact that we need a new high school, a different high school, not an additional high school, a new high school. We have foundation problems, we have infrastructure problems, we have plumbing problems, we have all kinds of problems there that cannot be fixed. And so it's time to put it to rest and build a new one.
Definitely. I think it's interesting whenever you take grandparents into the schools and they go, wow, it looks exactly the same as when I went to school here. And that is the current state of our high school. And so, like you said, those needs just seem to be growing by the month. And it's something that we definitely need to look forward to.
There was a community member that talked to me at one of the things that I went to over the holiday that told me I graduated in 1973 there, and it needed to be replaced then. So it needs to be replaced.
So for those that don't know, our high school was completed in 1954. So that makes it 72 years old this year. So it's pretty old. It's getting up there in age. So Gallagher, y'all are here to kind of help us as representatives of Gallagher Construction to help us with the whole bond project if we move forward and even just steps leading up to it. So kind of talk about like y'all's role, y'all's credibility, what y'all do to help our district. Y'all were such an instrumental part of helping us pass the Vader, and we're excited to continue that partnership.
Well, thanks for the opportunity. So at Gallagher, I want to make sure everybody knows we don't have an opinion. Our job in this process is to make sure that all of the questions are answered so that the community, the administrators, the board can make a decision that best suits your community. We know we don't live here. We don't pay taxes here. So our job is to look at the buildings, their efficiencies, their age, what it would take to bring them back to their useful life, and try to help put a number to that so that the community can make a decision. I will say we did a comprehensive facility assessment over the entire high school earlier this year while we were up here working on the Vader. That building, it's beautiful, has character, right? I'm sure there's a lot of people that are proud of it, and they should be. It is woefully inefficient. Take, for example, if you're going to go from a classroom to CTE and back. I don't know how long your passing periods are, 7 minutes or something.
I think they're at 6 minutes, right?
Maybe 5.
Maybe 5.
Well, it took me longer to walk to CTE than 5 or 6 minutes when we were just assessing those buildings. Now, your CTE buildings are relatively new. Those are great job to the board and administrators who made those things happen. But when you're looking at the layout, it's woefully inefficient. If you'll take some things into account, like the life expectancy of plumbing, there are powers that are much more intelligent than us that report these things from a national level. And plumbing is expected to fail in any building between 50 and 70 years of age. And how old did you say the building was earlier?
It'll be 72 years this year.
So just think about how difficult it becomes to replace all of the plumbing, in slab or under slab plumbing for a building like your high school. Multiple buildings spread out all over at the same age. You're talking about having to jackhammer through floors to replace plumbing, and it just opens up an entire can of worms. It's always good. You know, my grandfather gave my son a 2005 pickup when my son turned 16. And we thought that was fantastic. But I think we spend more money keeping that thing running than if we had just bought him a car off the lot, right? So that's the decision that the community and board and administrators are going to have to struggle with. Do we put our good hard-earned tax dollars now into an old building that's never going to get younger? Or do we build something that's going to last for another 72 years?
A lot of the comments that I saw based from the survey that we sent out last week talked about why are we doing this now? You know, why are we adding, they talked about the new sidewalks that we just put in and why we're adding money into the building now. And so can y'all talk about for a second just the process? Like if a bond were to pass, let's say this year, what does the timeline look like? Because what I don't think people understand is just how long it takes to get a new high school and why we're having to do those projects like to get restrooms back up running this year or to add a walkway for our students to be able to get to CTE in a little shorter time. So can y'all talk about that for a second?
I'll start this because I think I bring a unique perspective, and I'll let Rob jump in at the end and finish it. I am a retired superintendent, and back when I was a superintendent, had the opportunity to work with Gallagher through the process of building a high school. In Sinton ISD, our high school was about 55 or 60 years old, was having some of those same issues. And we had an opportunity, and we went out for a bond, and Gallagher walked us through the entire process, right? With a high school, for example, though, once a bond is called, it usually takes approximately a year for design. And so when you're looking at the cost of a high school, you have to figure in escalation of what that will probably cost in a year. So we have to look at the jobs we're doing around the state and look at the average escalation to come up with that amount.
Well, and additionally, to answer your question about timeline and why are you putting money into the buildings now, in a realistic world, right? So you wouldn't call a bond the earliest you could. There's 2 cycles a year, every May and every November. The governor, in a couple of years, is trying to eliminate the May, which is only going to leave 2 cycles a year, which is going to increase the cost of schools then artificially. But the earliest you could go out now would be May. If you went out in May, and then it takes a year to design, you're looking at May of 2027 before the job is designed. That's when you would start to bid it. It takes at least 2 years to build a comprehensive high school in the state of Texas. So if you're looking at May of 2027 when you go out for bid, you're looking at probably not opening that school until August of 2029, 29 or 30. So the reason you're putting money into the facilities that you do have now is you have to provide a sound education for the kiddos you serve today until whenever a new high school would open. Additionally, I'm not sure what you would do with all of your buildings that are there at the high school today. They could be donated or sold to the city, where the city could have city offices out of it that require less durability than you would say a school would. Some of those buildings over there may stay in possession of the school, and the kids still use them, and the teachers. So until there's a plan to replace the buildings, there's no plan to do with the buildings that we're replacing, right? You don't have to figure that out until the community knows, are we going to have a new school? If you're going to have a new school, then we have to start determining what we're going to do with those buildings. And for taxpayers' sake, some of them may serve different purposes down the road.
Well, my response to the sidewalk was talk to your children. They were a little disappointed having to walk through mud, having to walk through high grass. So we, at their request, put in a sidewalk from the outbuilding all the way to the highway so they could walk on concrete over to CTE. And so I think it was a smart move. Looking 2 years, 3 years down the road, that concrete's going to serve its purpose, and we're going to be able to do that. Plus the fact that they were actually detouring at times across the tennis courts, causing damage to the court surface. And so we've got those all locked. We've got the outside gate open or the exterior gate open to get into CTE, so it makes it much easier for them to access in a quicker way and a safer way.
Well, and I think the main point is that any projects that we're doing right now at our high school is to serve the needs of our students right now.
Immediately.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like these are things that need to be done. The restrooms need to be updated. There's no doubt about that. The sidewalk, like you said, needed to be done so our students stopped walking through mud and damaging other parts of our high school. And so I don't think it's in the sense that we're wasting money or we're trying to, just keep dumping money into, like you said, a failing building. But there's still going to be students there for the next couple of years, and we got to do something. But looking forward, as we begin this conversation about a new high school, I think it's important just to note what you said about how it is failing. Our plumbing issues are failing, especially when we have students, flushing vapes down the toilets and just things like that. And there's no way to fix that on a cheap side. And so whenever we start these conversations and we look at how much money it'll cost to either replace, the plumbing in the building, you have to start thinking about too, also like, what are we going to do with the students? These are not easy projects that we can complete in just a couple weeks. And so all of that considered, that is kind of why this conversation is happening now, that we are trying to plan before we come to a crossroad where it is critical and we don't have a choice. And so I think that getting our community involved in these conversations, getting Gallagher just really helping us get started with all of it is helping our district be proactive as we move forward.
So I will say that the community has, the idea to struggle with. Do we replace the high school or not? The answer is already yes. You will replace many of the buildings at that high school. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. The buildings are failing, and so if you don't want to do it today, fine. And you're going to do it at some point. Traditionally, if you'll go back and look at the history of school construction and the cost per square foot, I've never seen it go down except right at the beginning of COVID, and then it went way back up, right? So it isn't a matter of if, it's a matter of when, and it'll never be as cheap as it is today. That's why Gallagher, we feel our responsibility is to provide all of you, the stakeholders, the information you need to decide, do we do it now when it's going to be at its cheapest? Do we wait 10 years when it could potentially be double or triple what it would be if we did it today? Your decision, but we'll give you the data.
If you go to the second floor around the English department, there are times during the day where the sewage smell, gas smell comes back up through the hallway. We can't fix that unless we drill down 2 stories and go down to the very bottom, which is cost prohibitive when you're trying to have school. It's also very annoying for students to have to walk through that on a constant basis and not be able to fix it. So we have to pour money into that, but we also need to replace it because some of those things cannot be fixed.
When we start talking about whether you all choose to do this project or not, we're going to run some numbers they're referred to in 2 different acronyms. Either it's a CIA, a cost index analysis, or an FCI, a facility condition index. What these numbers are, and they're used commonly in the architecture world, how much will it cost to repair the buildings that you currently have? And we're just talking monetarily, not the displacement of kids and where are we going to have classes and where's the portable farm going to be when we try to update them, but just merely the cost of construction. How much is that going to cost compared to replacing the building altogether? Studies across the United States, they will range anywhere between 50 and 70%. So if it's going to cost 50% as much as building new, a lot of people believe build new because you're throwing good money at a bad building. And when that increases up to 60 or 70%, would you pay to put a new engine in your car $20,000 or just buy a new one for $30,000? It's kind of the same concept with a building.
Okay, so whenever we talked about the Vader, we talked about 2 different sides of school finance, the INS and the M&O. And so with the Vader, we talked heavily on the M&O, and we kind of dismissed the INS because that wasn't needed at the time. So now with the bond, we are looking at the INS side. So can y'all kind of explain what the INS is, explain what the acronym stands for, and how it works with the bond and that whole process?
Sure. I'll start this. M&O, you mentioned earlier, is maintenance and operations. And when Hereford ISD passed the Vader, that was money that was coming in on the M&O side. A bond is separate. It goes into your INS or your interest in sinking. And when you think about it, it's kind of that's like your mortgage payment. That's your bond payments that you're going to pay on capital projects over time. So completely different pool of money. And when you go out for a bond, obviously it goes to public vote, and the community has to come out and vote on that. And one of the places where Gallagher, I felt, helped me the most as a superintendent was to educate me and to help me organize the community facility committee. It's important that committee has all the facts, that they know everything. They know the numbers, they know the process, they know how it's going to be, because then they're the ones going out talking to their friends and family and sharing that information. Rob said this earlier. We don't have an opinion on this other than we want the facts out there for the entire community to have. And then if the community, whatever decision the community makes, obviously we're going to respect and say it's your community. You can run with it how you wish. We just want to make sure the facts are out there, not misinformation.
The difference between the two pots is M&O. Think of M&O as if you're relating it to your household and your family. M&O is your paycheck that you're using every week or every month to pay your bills, right? You can't come out of, most people, at least I can't, come out of my normal weekly check and just say, I'm going to go buy a house. All right. So in order to do that, I have to take out a mortgage, and a bank gives me a loan against my paychecks in order to pay for that house. No different with schools, just the terminology is different. So for example, with your M&O, 80% of that or so probably goes to teachers and salaries. Mm-hmm. So that 20% that's left, you're putting fuel in buses, you're paying the light bill, you're buying technology, whatever happens with that other 20%, much like a personal paycheck, there's not enough money to go build a building like this, right? So you have to apply for your mortgage, and because it's taxpayer dollars that are going to pay back that mortgage, you need the voters' approval, as you should. But that's the difference, really.
So how much are y'all seeing that high schools are costing these days just across the state of Texas? Like a brand new building, everything.
Loaded question, and I refuse to answer. Let me say this. It depends on the design. It depends on the architect. It depends on the size and all of the functionality that the community wants to see inside that building. Dr. Jones, we estimated yours back in 2020, and it was approximately $90 million, I think.
Yes.
Dr. Carter, how much have costs gone up since COVID? You and I talked about this.
Over 50%.
So 50%. So the exact same footprint that Dr. Jones used down in Sinton would probably be $135 million today. I don't know how the size would relate to Hereford until we have an architect to get some information from.
Well, and I think that just goes back to your point earlier about how costs are just continually increasing, and why now is the cheapest time to build a new high school. It's never going to get cheaper, at least as far as the trends are showing. And so that needs to be in consideration as we move forward with these conversations. So going back to your comment about how we try to get the community involved in like our facilities committee and all that, we did send out a survey during the break, just asking some general questions to kind of get a feel of what our community is thinking. So we had 638 responses, and 70.8%, this is going to be a lot of numbers here, just a second, just bear with me. But 70.8% of people said they were familiar with the condition and the age of Hereford High School. 54.5% of people said that we should build a brand new high school, with 30.6% saying to renovate the existing one. And then the other percentage of that didn't have an opinion. 74.6% of people said they would be somewhat to very likely to support a future bond for a new high school. And 43.7% of people said that Stanton coming down is not important, with 56.4% saying that it was somewhat very important to them. So that kind of just gives us an understanding of where our community is at. I think that is great to have as we move forward, because the more informed we are about what our community thinks, the better informed decisions we can make about what we need to do next.
I think something important to think about is that's great information, and it's great information to show where the community is at the start of a process where there's a lot of education that has to take place through the process, right? So we kind of know where they stand. Then it's coming out and educating them and giving them all the facts, so then they can hone their thoughts towards that.
Definitely. And, this is just a base survey with our community not having a lot of information. And so I think it was good to see what those initial thoughts are and then compare it down the road as we start getting more information out to them.
Well, I would just say it's important for us to understand we're not calling a bond.
Yes.
Nobody has said that the board is going to call a bond. We're exploring the opportunity and the option. That's also where their voice can come in, because we're going to have an additional meeting, probably either the 22nd of January or the 29th of January. And I would encourage those who are hearing this and watching this that they would actually come and be a part of that, whether you're for it or you're against it. Because if you're against it, we certainly want to be able to find out what your opinion is on that. So I would encourage call the main office, email Naoli or email Kara, and we certainly will let you know when that next meeting is going to take place.
Yeah, let me piggyback off of that because that's kind of the direction I was going to go. The key to this, anybody listening, is the more diverse cross-section of the community that we can get on the facility committee, the better you're going to hear. Their voice is going to be able to be heard by the board. There's power in, I'll just use Sinton, my district, for an example. We had 40 to 50 people on our facility committee, and it was people that were lifelong Sintonites that had been there for a long time that were well respected. Anyway, when that group did all this homework and then walked before the board and said, this is our recommendation to you, that has power. If you've got a group of 5 people and the community really is still uneducated, it doesn't have the same power. So one of the things that we want to do is to try to build that facility committee, get it big, large enough, and no matter, like Dr. Carter said, the board may decide not to call a bond now, but having a long-range facility committee looking at this over time is still very important. So the one thing I would say I'd like to see is a larger, more diverse group of people that understand this community.
Definitely. So if you're listening and you're interested in serving on that committee or just having your voice heard, no matter how you stand on this topic, please reach out to me or Dr. Carter or Naoli, and we can definitely get you some more information on that. Yes.
Yes, I want to make sure to share. So one of the topics that's going to be covered at that meeting is going to be your financial advisor, David Faltis, with Government Capital. We'll be here diving into, if you do a new high school, down to the penny and all of the details, what will that cost you as a taxpayer in your household? So get everybody you can to come hear that answer for themselves.
Yes, because that's the question people really want answered. So,
Yeah.
Dr. Jones, I just wanted to ask you if you would share the story that you shared this morning about your time in Sinton and what the high school meant to that community, or your new facility that y'all had.
Yeah, I've been retired for a year and a half, and people ask me, what are you most proud of? What accomplishment are you most proud of in your time as a superintendent? And obviously, all the little wins were huge, just every success story. But Sinton was a pretty impoverished town. Hadn't been a whole lot of new construction in that town in probably 30 years. High school was 50 plus years old, and we had an opportunity to go in there and build that new high school. And when you go back to Sinton now, it's amazing the difference. The chins are held higher. There's a pride in the community, which, like I said, hadn't had anything new. And so what it's done for morale in that community has been unbelievable. And so because you think about it, if that building lasts 70 years like this, you're affecting generation after generation of students in that community. And that's something that, like Rob said, it's not a matter of if it's going to happen. It's going to happen here at some point in time. It's when. So it's up to the community to get educated to make that decision.
Definitely. Well, I think that is a great point to end on, and how we can just help our future generations, help our ones that are coming up. Our students deserve the best, and that is something that we have said from the beginning of, just even the Vader conversation. And so being able to have this opportunity to make a difference in the lives of our current students and the ones that are coming even 70 years down the road, I think is really important in a really big discussion that we are having right now. So just get informed, get involved, and let us know what you are thinking. Is there anything else that y'all feel that our community needs to know, especially here in the beginning stages, and as we prepare for just more of these conversations and things like that?
Just don't vote with feelings, vote with facts. If the board calls a bond, make sure you're educated and vote your heart.
I agree.
Okay. All right. Well, that's a lot of information in a short amount of time, but we'll be continuing these conversations on the podcast, on our Facebook, everywhere that we push out information. So just stay informed and keep being updated as we keep those updates rolling. And then again, if you're interested in being a part of this initiative and the conversations going forward, please reach out to me. It is Kara Esquivel at HerefordISD.net, and we'll send you an invite to that upcoming facilities committee meeting. that's all we have today. Dr. Jones and Mr. Sidebottom, thank you for joining us. Carter, you as well.
Thank you.
Remember to tune in next week as we continue our conversations into this heavy topic. We'll get deeper into the inside of a needs over a high school and just the whole process overall. Remember, you can find us anywhere you get your podcasts or watch us on Facebook and YouTube.